Okay, good, good. I'm glad that you're here this week. And it really has been just a fantastic week. We had 23 kids here for day camp. And one of the coolest things was that we had a neighbor kid whose mom saw the kids playing outside and said, "Hey, can I send my daughter over?" And she joined up with us halfway through the week and was here every day from there. So again, it's just neat to how God works. And it's just been a great week, and it was nice to have church full of kids running and laughing and singing and learning about Jesus. And then on top of that, I get to preach on what is probably my favorite gospel story. All right, this story, and from Mark. All right, because it gets told in other gospels, but this is my favorite. And honestly, though, if I think about it, I'm not sure why it's my favorite. I just remember it always being that way. And I can remember in high school and in college, if I was feeling down or something like that, or if I was in trouble, or if I was sick, I always read this story. And I can remember that it was kind of a go-to for me. So with that, though, I got to thinking, I was like, well, why is this story so powerful to me? Why is this story so meaningful to me? And I wonder, as I was thinking about it this week and praying about it this week, maybe it has something to do with the two unnamed characters in this story. The two unnamed characters of Jesus. So who are the two characters who are healed this morning? The woman and the girl, yeah. And it strikes me again how rarely there are names used in the Bible a lot of times. Because we put such a heavy emphasis on names. And it's interesting that Jairius, the ruler of the synagogue, gets named. The daughter is just known as the 12-year-old daughter. And we have the old woman who's been suffering for 12 years. That's interesting to me. So what sticks out to you about these two characters as you're reading? Anything stick out to you? And you're allowed to cheat. You have the story in front of you, so you're always allowed to read the Bible. I have very little of the Bible memorized, but I know how to find it. What sticks out to you? Anything interesting about these two characters? Any similarities? Yeah, Marissa.
The daughter is 12 years old and the lady has been suffering for ages for 12 years?
Yeah, I don't think that's an accident. The fact that Mark mentions it and why Mark does, I'm not sure, other than maybe to link them. That there's something important about both of these, and that it's sort of a similar deal. What else? They're both very ill. All right, yeah. One of them's been sick for 12 years and hasn't been able to be healed, and one's dead. Which is hard to get sicker than that. So so we have that going on. So, and what else about them? What gender are they? Women. Okay, so that's interesting. How rich are they? What's their socioeconomic status? The poor woman, the one woman that spent all of her money. The other one might have been better off because she was the daughter of a leader, respected guy. So we've got something there too, And these are questions that I have when we read over things, because I think one of the biggest things is that the ages do matter, that they're women, So looking at this, they were both considered of low value, okay? And we have trouble conceptualizing that because we put such a high value on kids these days. Like I was saying, we're so happy that we have kids in church. They didn't really care about kids back then, especially women kids, all right? Because basically 60% of all children born alive had died by their teens. All right, so a dying daughter wasn't considered a big deal back then. This old woman, she was poor. She was probably a widow. Not important. So it's interesting to me, and they were both have been considered unclean and untouchable. They were both people that should not be in a public setting. All right? And in touching Jesus, the woman breaks a serious law. All right? Because she goes up and touches him. And what happens when an unclean thing touches a clean thing? Yeah, that's the way it worked back then, and that's the way it works now. If you touch somebody's blood, yeah, that's not a good thing. That's sort of the way that it was thought of back then. So in touching Jesus, she makes him unable to go to the temple and worship. All right, he was now unclean. In touching the dead girl, again, Jesus breaks a serious law and makes himself unclean and unable to be part of the temple and unable to be part of society. Like, you had to go away for a while. So, I mean, these are big deals, like, when this is going on. And yet, how does Jesus respond to both of these women who others thought so little of? He heals them. He touches them. He interacts with them in spite of the social, religious, and political consequences. And right there, I wonder if this captures why this has been a favorite story of mine for so many years. Perhaps the story of the bleeding woman and Jairius' dead daughter reveals what Jesus cares about. What if this story clearly shows what God's priorities are? If that's true, go with me here. What are God's priorities? Are they rules? Are they laws? Are they religious traditions? Absolutely not. They're people. People in need. And more importantly, sometimes it's those who are overlooked and looked down on by others. Poor people, women, oppressed, ignored, marginalized. All of this is true. And yet, I wonder if we could even go simpler than this. Could we simply say that Jesus' priority are people? Time and time again, Jesus seems to show little regard for anything that stands in opposition or oppression of people, whether it be a law, a tradition, somebody else's opinion, or a rule. When his disciples are hungry and they violate the Sabbath law, he tells them to go ahead, because he says that people are more important than religious rules. Jesus, at one point in the Gospels, he heals an enemy soldier, his servant, because people to Jesus are more important than politics, race, or nationality. And Jesus speaks to and heals and values women over and over and over again, because people are more important than public opinion or tradition. And again, maybe this is why this story continues to resonate in my life. It reassures me that God will continue to seek me, to love me and forgive me, no matter how many times I mess up or how insignificant I feel at certain times in my life. And at the same time, this story of God's priorities, that God values people, continues to challenge and convict me at the same time. Because if I'm honest, and I don't know if any of you, I'm sure none of the rest of you fall into this category, sometimes I feel like I care too much about how people think of me, how people view me, even if it means ignoring others in me. All right, so has anybody else here ever felt the pressure to appear nice, to appear religious, to appear popular or patriotic, even at the expense of someone else? I know I've been there. I want to tell you a story. Growing up, I was never a very popular kid. Most pastors aren't. We're huge nerds. But I wasn't a popular kid. And in fact, throughout elementary school, I didn't have any friends. I mean, like zero. All right? And when I got into middle school, I actually made a few friends, and that felt good. And one year I went to camp, and I got taken in by this group of popular kids. All right, and I was part of the in group. I wasn't on the outside anymore, and I have to tell you, it felt pretty good. The problem is that usually when there's a popular group, when there's an in group, there's also an unpopular group and an out group. There's a target. And Jason was that kid in our cabin. The guys that I was with, they picked on him unmercifully. And they called him names. I remember they filled his sleeping bag with sugar one time. And one of them even went to the bathroom in one of his shoes. Yeah. And I don't remember personally doing anything mean to this kid. But I clearly remember that I didn't do anything to stop it. Jason was a strange kid. He was an awkward kid. But he was a person. And that's what matters to God. So I wonder, who are the people who we hurt or ignore through action or inaction? Who are the groups of people that we hurt or marginalize through our actions or our inaction? Perhaps this is what makes stories like this about Jesus so powerful to me. This story both reassures me of my worth and challenges me to see the worth in others. Jesus heals with a touch. Jesus forgives with a word. And a lot of times, you want to cheer, yeah, Jesus, do that. Save it. Save them. And at the same time, in the same breath, I often think, oh no, Jesus. Love my enemies. Pray for those who persecute me. Give away all my stuff if I have more than one. Oh no, Jesus. Save me. The gospel of Jesus Christ is about God wanting us, loving us, giving us heaven where we are and how we are. And at the same time, the gospel of Jesus Christ will not let us stay where we are, how we are. Later in Mark's gospel, a pastor comes to Jesus and asks what the most important commandment is. And Jesus says, I want to see if any of my day camp kids remember this. What do they say the most important commandment is? Yes, sir.
You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind.
Exactly. That's right. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5. And that's the importance of day camp. Thank you all. You did great. And to love our neighbors as ourselves. And I wonder, what does that look like for us? What does that look like for you, for me, for St. Peter's Lutheran Church? What does it look like for us to love God and love people? I invite you to dwell on that this week. Perhaps it's making worship, making rest, making work, family time, sports, school, making all those things equally important in your life. Perhaps it's saying no when someone violates a person's humanity with a racist, sexist, or homophobic joke. Perhaps it's loving yourself and others equally, not putting them ahead of you or not putting them behind you, but loving your neighbor as you love yourself. Jesus and Holy Scripture always seek to both reassure us of God's grace and to challenge us to strive to embody that same grace to others. If we ever find Jesus agreeing with everything that we believe, then we need to question if we are following the true Jesus or an idol of our own invention. If this sounds hard, if this sounds intimidating, know that it is. Discipleship is hard. Faith is hard. Grace is hard. Know that you will mess up. Know that you will fail. Know that you will hurt God and hurt others with your words and actions. But know, most of all, that you are forgiven. And know that God will not abandon you, and nor will God allow you to stay where you are. So I invite us to go in peace, to try and love and serve the Lord and your neighbors as yourself. Again and again and again. Thanks be to God. Amen.